Hi, folks. Kim Mitchell here. You know, however you choose to get around, your ATV, your snowmobile, your boat, car, if you have a motorcycle, all these things take 100% of your attention and skill to operate safely. Alcohol impairs that, and bad things can happen. So, be smart, okay? You know what I'm going to say next.
This message brought to you from the Safe and Sober Awareness Committee.
Do you find that mainstream FM radio plays the same classic rock songs over and over, and rarely, with the exception of specialty programs, play backtracks or B-sides from your favorite albums? I hope you can join me, Chuck Roberts, on Friday nights at 9 p.m. for my one-hour show, Classic Backtracks. We'll explore the backtracks or B-sides from classic rock artists from the 60s through the 90s, and play the songs that you don't usually hear on mainstream radio. And hopefully we'll play a hidden gem that brings back some fond musical memories. During my show, I also profile a Canadian rock artist in my Coast to Coast segment, and each week close the program profiling a classic rock artist's contribution to rock music from bands to solo efforts or collaborations. That's Classic Backtracks on Friday nights at 9 p.m.
We are back in the studio of Whistle FM with Bill Cotric, and we are talking about... Well, we're talking about coaching, and now we're talking about coaching in a life form, and we're talking about emotional intelligence, which I think is kind of an oxymoron, because when I get emotional, it often isn't intelligent, let me tell you. It may be telling, but it's not intelligent. That's for sure. The old scream and lose your marbles completely, the amygdala hijack, and then all of a sudden you get control of yourself and say, what the heck did I just do? It usually comes around a big family dinner when there's all the cats to organize, which are my kids, and no one's doing what I think they're supposed to be doing, and the appetizers don't look the way they're supposed to, and I'm not getting the help that I need, and I lose it completely. And over the last couple of years, I've just had to say, you know what? If the little crackers don't get on the table, they don't get on the table. Right. No one's going to come to an end because of it. So just leave it.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Let it go. Yeah. Then I start singing that song from Frozen. Let it go, let it go. Yeah, I turn into some Disney character, which also really isn't real, but okay.
Well, I love the fact that you call your kids cats, because I guess with 4, it would be like,
it's like herding cats. Yeah, it is. Often it is, because everybody has their own agenda. It's fine when they're little, because they really buy into the group agenda thing, but when they get to be in their 20s, everybody has a completely different agenda. They all have a completely different idea of what is what, and it's funny when you start to let it go. And I thought to myself, you know, at one time last year, well, it's a stocking, I'm just going to wrap it in whatever. And they were horrified on Christmas morning when, this isn't Santa paper. What, Santa didn't come? Yeah. Oh, for goodness sake, you're 24. Yeah. Get a grip.
Well, it's interesting how expectations, yes, are, sometimes just one-sided, between a parent and a child relationship, right?
Yeah, or when the dinner is what they're expecting, and then when they don't pull their weight, and I haven't been on them, like, get it done, get it done, get it done, and then it comes to the dinner, and they're saying, well, that wasn't like we're used to. Really? Well, you're going to have to buy into helping out and make it what you want it to be.
Yes, exactly.
I guess that's emotionally intelligent, but it came from some emotional, real non-intelligence that was born from.
Yeah, so that last piece would have been the skill, the emotional intelligence skill of assertiveness, right? Okay. So as opposed to being all emotional about it, where you've now grown your emotional intelligence, is by asserting what you're wanting and communicating it in an assertive way.
Yes.
Right.
Not in an emotionally charged way.
Right. And then also, going to the bigger picture of what's going on as well. So again, that's about emotional intelligence, is that, okay, it's not about the crackers being on the table, it's about us coming together as a family, right? And so again, there's a certain degree of emotional intelligence that's required for you to be thinking that way and to ultimately, doing what you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus, a lot of times people say, I know I shouldn't blow up, but I just did. But I want to be clear that emotions are much more than just those, dramatic emotions, that we have emotions all the time. Some of us are more subtle in the emotions that we have, people that are sad, usually, you don't see a lot of demonstration of that emotion, but you know that something's going on with them, right? So emotion is just information, and the more that we can, in an emotionally intelligent state, be able to look at what's going on with ourselves. I mean, I do that a lot of times. I'll say, okay, what's going on with you? Something's bothering you here. What is it, right? And then when you take the process of sort of saying, okay, this is what it's about. What's my choice around this? Do I want to continue to feel this way about this? Do I want to be with this emotion? Or do I want to change it? And so you always have the choice. And sometimes people say, oh, that doesn't sound very realistic. But even when you're sick, right, you can just totally buy into it and just wallow in that. Yeah. Or you can sort of try to put your best foot forward with whatever's going on with you, and you'd be amazed at what you can achieve. Right. Absolutely amazed. I was facilitating a group in Copenhagen, and we had some bad food the night before. And oh my God, I called the organizer and I said, I just don't know how I'm going to do this. And it's 8:00 in the morning. And he said, oh, Bill, my God, there's people from all over the place. Like, there's nobody else that can do this. You've got to do it, right? I said, okay, just give me another half hour. I see what. And all I did was just raise my energy around that. I need to be there. Just hold everything until 4:30. Right?
Imodium, please.
But, with that strong intention, I was able to get through the day, and at 4:30, everything started up again. So, we have more power than we think. And emotional intelligence is at the key of that. If we exercise our emotional intelligence, we're able to do all kinds of amazing things.
Okay. I think I heard that you actually have done some of your work with kids.
Yes.
Who are definitely not executives, but they are executives at ruling the roost, because if a parent thinks that they're in control, dream on! Yeah. You are a pawn in their game.
Yeah. So to be clear, Bren, coaching, it's not considered coaching until an individual is 16 years of age.
Right.
But
that makes sense.
What I've done is I've developed workshops that I use in corporate settings, but customize them for the general public as well. And they're authenticity workshops. Because the main thing that I've learned from coaching is that if you're not authentic to who you are, and if you are not setting up authentic goals in relationship to who you really are, it's just going to be a very sort of shallow, short-term kind of hooray, but not sustaining. Right. So part of my job as a coach is to really get underneath everything that you're wanting to understand, is it in line with who you really are? Or is there a real authentic agenda that you're missing out on? Right? And so by having these workshops, it brings a huge amount of efficiency in understanding. The first workshop is Embrace Your Oddity, and it's about really understanding what is the internal struggle that I'm having with myself and who I am, right? And then we have all kinds of exercises in getting to that place of understanding that, first of all, we all feel that way. Even the arrogant ones feel that way, right? But it's about, what do we want to do with this now? And then the second workshop brings in emotional intelligence. And so understanding where you are in your emotional intelligence allows you to determine how you want to step out into the world with leadership of who you are. Right. And I'm not saying just throw yourself out there. I'm saying you're still going to be strategic. There's some people that you're going to be able to share a lot more with than with other people. And that's your choice, right? And then the third workshop is Embrace Your Authentic Relationships. And that really is relationships, we've determined, is the greatest determinant of what brings you closer to your authenticity or takes you further away. right?
Okay.
So we've all experienced that when there's somebody that's being very authentic with us. It can't help but trigger our own authenticity, unless we have such an aversion of going there that we kind of go, oh, snap out of it, you're talking crazy, right?
Yeah, and you've heard people say that many times before.
Yeah. Right. And so the last workshop in the series is Embrace Your Authentic Life Purpose.
And how long are these workshops, just saying?
2 days. They're each 2 days.
Each is 2 days.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they usually run, each quarter of the year, right?
Huh.
But where I've done some work with the kids is I took the first workshop, Embrace Your Oddity, and I changed it to Embrace Your Ultimate Selfie.
Okay.
And I did that with kids that have learning disabilities, right?
Nice.
And I did that in York Region with the York Regional Association. And it was tremendous to see how individuals that were struggling, and especially I had no idea how much bullying is going on, like cyberbullying and all this stuff. I had no idea when the story started to come out. But when they were able to anchor in the authenticity of who they are, all of a sudden, people that went from saying things like, yeah, people think I'm going to kill somebody one day and they're probably right, to, I really like who I am. I don't care what anybody else thinks. And I'm going to start being a leader for other people who are weird like me, right? And he's become a leader in his school now, right? Good. So I can't stress enough how important to be fulfilled, to make a difference in this world, authenticity is. That's what I've learned more than anything else about this. And believe me, I've been on my own personal journey with this and dropping a lot of things that I saw as being a successful person, was not that easy initially.
No.
Right? And certainly when you're getting a lot of reinforcement from other people that, oh, like, what, you're going to do this now? I mean, there's friends that I don't have anymore because they just couldn't accept me as a life coach. Right? It's like, oh, come on, get real. You're going to do that? This is who I am. Right? It really speaks and touches who I authentically am and my life purpose. Right?
Well, as a life coach, I could see that a big part of what you do is trying to get someone to focus on what it is, because there are so many distractions now. It's really easy to spend a whole night doing nothing but playing video games. It's super easy to spend a whole night on Netflix.
Yeah, escapism.
And distractions. We just have so many of them, and they're almost a part of who we are now. It's another part of the societal marketing scheme that gets you to get that, like you were saying, snap fulfillment out of buying something, or that snap fulfillment out of, oh, that was a nice movie. Those people are so lucky. I can't believe what's on YouTube these days, from a whole station of one child just opening presents. Do you know how many little kids watch that? I was astounded. And they're getting pleasure from watching some spoiled brat open presents all day long. And if he doesn't like it, he tosses them in the garbage, and they think it's so funny. And there are kids who, in their wildest dreams, could never have that. And the escapism and the diversion again. It's all about these diversions that we seem to be creating right, left, and center for ourselves. And what you might think you want to do versus what you really, I don't want to say should do, but what is more true to you than what other people are saying you're good at is. And I guess that's kind of what you were saying, is that someone's saying, really, you're going to do that? It's not their idea of who you are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And it's hard to combat that. It's hard to go against that grain.
Yeah. It is, but
so
that's where the courage piece comes in, right?
But as a coach, you help them find that courage, or do you help them find the path, or a little bit of both?
Well, I can give you a real-life example where I was coaching a female executive that was moving into the most senior VP role in her organization. And so I'm talking to her, and I just use the word Janet for the women and Bob for the men that I coach, so that, that I'm not disclosing anything. So I said to her, Janet, you don't seem very excited about this move into this role. And she said, what is there to be excited about? I make more money than I ever know what to do with. I don't have any kids to leave it to. I'm going to add another 20 minutes to my commute because I've got my office is going to be in that other building now. What is there to be excited about? I started out in the mailroom in this organization. I don't even know how I got here. All I ever wanted to be was a vet's assistant.
Right.
And I went, oh, well, that's interesting. I never heard that before. And she goes, well, don't act so surprised. I love animals. I have my horses, I have my dogs. It's all about animals for me. I said, yeah, no, I do know that, but I never knew that you wanted to be a vet's assistant. Tell me more about that. She goes, well, being able to help animals when they're in need, and she's just lit up, right? I went, wow, there's so much passion behind what you're saying. I said, what if you were to be a vet's assistant today? Would you find that fulfilling? And she goes, are you crazy? Are you telling me to leave, VP Grand Poobah, at such and such company to become a vet's assistant at this point? People would think I was crazy.
Yeah.
I said, yes, you're right. They will think you're crazy. But I'm asking you, how do you? She goes, you're nuts. I can't believe you're asking me this. I said, it's just a question. If you don't want to answer it, you can just throw it over there. And she just stared at me for the longest time. And she said, you're goddamn right it would make me happy. I said, so you just listed all the things why you're not excited about this job. And you talked to me in a very passionate, excited way about being a vet's assistant. So what's holding you back?
Yeah.
Right?
Did she make the switch?
She did. She went from making like $480,000 a year to something like
$40,000.
I think it was 26,000 or 36. I can't remember exactly.
But she already said too that the money didn't mean anything to her, and she had no one to leave it to.
She had more than she ever knew what to do with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had that choice to say.
Well, and that's the thing
That's a lot of people say.
with people that have a lot of resources, it's much easier.
To make those
but
choices.
in a case where sometimes something's identified, but the person doesn't have the resources, coaching can also put you on the track where now you get really organized about putting a sort of a step-by-step approach in how are you going to get that. You might not have the resources right now, but if that's what's really going to make you happy, then how are you going to do that, right? And sometimes it is about, changing your lifestyle and maybe not drinking that really expensive wine or whatever, and making some sacrifice.
Making some choices.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, because sometimes they're not sacrifices, they're just choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And the more that we think about that we have the power to make choices, the more we make choices that fit for us. But when we do the victim thing I don't have a choice, I got to do this, I got to do that, you have choice around everything. But it's a matter of getting out of your own thinking and perceptions that you're holding around it.
Well, I think sometimes too people, one of my listeners who texted me this morning and said, just ask him how to sort through the muck, the muddle, the confusion. And I think what she was saying, because I've spoken to her many times, is the fact that she's multi-talented, jack of all trades, master of none. We both joke about being that all the time. And so one minute you do think you want to do this, and the next minute you think you want to do that, and the next minute you want to do this, and the next minute you're over here saying, well, I really should be doing that. Mm-hmm. And by the time you get around to it, you've done none of the above. But you've spent a lot of time thinking about it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's that you're not able to discern between the things that are most important to you. So I had a woman that said, I'm not feeling I've got focus in my life, so I would like to be coached around it so I get more focused. And so I used a tool with her, a coaching tool, and I asked her to detail the most important components of her life. Mm-hmm. Well, she just went on and kept writing and writing and writing. She had like 60 different things.
Uh-oh.
And a couple of times I said, now remember, it's just the most important. She goes, yeah, just the most important. So once she did all of that, I said, okay, so what are you seeing? And it was like it just hit her in the face, and she said, oh my God, no wonder I don't have any focus. You said the most important, and you mentioned it a couple of times, and I kept going. I'm not distinguishing between any of these things. They're all important to me.
Right.
And so where's my focus? And then she went, "Oh my God," and she started to cry. And she cried for a good 3-4 minutes without stopping. And, I finally, after a while, I said, "So what's going on?" And she goes, "My kids are nowhere on that list.
Wow.
And my husband keeps saying to me, 'You're not spending enough time with the kids.' And I think maybe he's got a point. You said they are the most important thing to me, and I don't have them on my list." Right? So that's the kind of awareness and clarity that can come through a coaching process, especially in a very sort of personal. I mean, people say to me that the relationship they have with me is more intimate than any best friend or spouse, because they're sharing their deepest, darkest sort of thoughts, right? And there's with no judgment. I had one gentleman say to me, like, "I have this deep, dark thing I'm going to tell you, but it's going to be 3-4 sessions before I'll be ready and comfortable." I said, "That's fine. It's your pace." And so in the second session, I asked him, "Does this connect to that deep, dark thing, that what you're talking about now?" And he goes, "That you're going to tell me one day." And he goes, "Oh my God, you don't realize when you said no judgment, you meant no judgment, because I told you in the first session what it was." I said, "What was it?" But this is the thing. We build up these things as being so deep, dark, or whatever, but they really aren't to anybody else except ourselves, right?
Right. Which kind of is funny, because we did have another listener who texted and asked, or contacted us on Facebook and asked, what is the difference between coaching and psychotherapy?
Oh, there's a huge difference.
Okay.
We don't analyze people, right? So in coaching, we basically, whoever it is, we see the person as being whole, right?
Okay.
You're fine just the way you are. You're whole. You're creative, resourceful, right?
All right.
And with that belief, we have to hold that belief as coaches. And if we can't hold that belief about someone, then we shouldn't be coaching them. And sometimes that's where you refer people. There's a lot of times I have female coaches that if they have a male client who's cheating on their wife, they don't want to have anything to do with them, because it triggers all kinds of things that maybe they've experienced in their life, and they can't hold them in that space of being whole, right? But the less judgment that we have about people and what people do and that, the better we can be of service as a coach. Right. Now, if there's things that have happened to you, traumatic things that have happened to you in your past that you want to share with your coach, that's fine. But again, it's about, so what do you want to do about it today? Right. Looking towards the future. We're not going to spend time analyzing why it happened. Family
of origin and all that kind of stuff. That's more of the psychotherapy and counseling kind of thing.
Exactly. And we've been trained to understand when maybe psychotherapy and, a psychologist might serve the client better, and we would make that suggestion to them.
And that doesn't mean that after they've had that they can come back to you, because they may need you to do the steps forward once they've sorted through their stuff.
And the other thing is, a lot of times I'll have people that have had a lot of therapy that say, "Oh my God, this is so much better than therapy. I wish I had done this instead." And I said, well, just a second. Maybe the therapy is what got you to this point. Right. So don't negate. Yeah, don't negate that experience, right? But there is an element of psychology that we deal with, but it's how the person approaches it. So when I had this one woman say, "Look, I've heard good things about you, and my business and life partner, one and the same person, has passed away, and I'm completely paralyzed. I've done nothing with the business. I've done nothing in my personal life for 4 months now, and I need to get moving. So is coaching something?" I said, "Well, I'm not sure. I'll meet with you, we'll talk, and then we'll see. This might be more about grief counseling or something, right?" So I said to her right off the bat, "So what's going on?" And she said, "Well, all I can hear is my father's voice saying, 'You're never going to amount to anything, and everything you touch, you destroy.'" Yeah. And you're like, okay, well, this potentially means therapy, right?
Yep, that means family of origin.
And so I just simply ask, so what do you want to do about that? And she said, "I've listened to that old man's voice long enough. I need to move on with my life." So now you know that there's a readiness and willingness to move forward. So that's coachable. right?
Yeah.
And so then we search out mechanisms of how she can silence that voice, how she can give it less power, right? And she was very successful in how she did that. And how people do that is very unique. There isn't anything that the coach says, this is what you need to do. They come up with their own solutions.
And you hold space for them to make that decision, to be able to make that decision.
Yeah. But to answer your listener's question, more and more therapy is becoming more coach-like, like positive psychology now. In fact, I'm an Adler-trained coach, and Alfred Adler was a psychologist. He was a student of Freud, and he didn't buy into all of that. He felt that building on people's strengths was a much better way of moving forward, right? And so more and more psychologists, therapists are moving to a more coach-like approach because they see that the more you're empowering people with their own thinking and intention, the more that it's going to happen for them, right? As opposed to keeping them in that space, right? I mean, something even as extreme as rape, right? You can allow that to define you the rest of your life. Or you can say, this is something that traumatically happened to me over this X number of minutes, and who I was before, the full potential of that person, I can be the full potential of that if I don't give it that amount of weight, right? Otherwise, the rape continues throughout that person's life, right? But again, sometimes therapy is needed to be able to deal with the trauma of these activating events, right?
To get over, to deal with that point and then be able to be at the point where you say, now I would like to move on.
Yes, and really self-actualize my full potential without any residual from that, something I had no control over.
Well, we are coming to the end of this show. It happened so quickly. We could go on and talk for another 2 hours. I know, I can just tell. But we do have to come to an end. So I would like to thank you very, very much for coming on the show this morning. It was a pleasure having you here. We hope to do this again. I think it's really worthwhile information that people can benefit from and might open their eyes to the potential that there is something else out there for them and that they might want to explore further. So I think it's just great. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you, and I want to also acknowledge your authenticity. I found it so refreshing to do a radio interview where the whole thing wasn't planned out ahead of time. I just thought it was so great to be able to just be with you and go where it went. And
thank you.
I love that. And
that's the organic side of this show.
Well, it speaks to your authenticity and being in the moment, which is really what it's all about.
Well, thanks. And next week, we've got Yolanda Pettifer on. Speaking of being in the moment, she's going to be talking about Christmas decorations, which I know is not this particular moment, but it happens every year on the 25th of December, and every year it takes me by surprise. So I'm having Yolanda in next week to get a jump on that kind of season. And following that, we have Keith Pitts. Keith Pitts has a book, Both Sides of 49. He's,
2 sides of 49.
Or 2 sides of 49. And, all right, it's on both sides, but whatever. The 49th parallel, it's all about cross-border shopping and still being Canadian. It's not about betraying your Canadianism. It's about taking advantage of some great opportunities south of the border. He'll tell you how to do your Christmas alcohol shopping in one day in Buffalo, declaring it at the border and still coming out at least 50% ahead of the game, as opposed to going to the LCBO here. So Keith's always wonderfully fun to have on the show, so I'm really looking forward to it. This year he's already gone to Arizona, so we will be speaking to him from Arizona.
Wow.
He'll be warm and cozy, and we will not. Anyway, you know what? We're going to finish off the show today with a really good catchy tune. This is Bruno Mars, Just the Way You Are. Thanks for listening. Tune in again next week. And remember, this show does play again on Sunday. If you missed any part of it, you can also go to our website, freshwaves.ca, and hear the podcast. Thanks for participating today. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
Oh, her
tell her every day. Yeah, I know, when I compliment her, she won't believe me. And it's so sad to think that she don't see what I see. But every time she asks me, do I look okay? I say, when I see your face, there's not a thing that I would change. 'Cause you're amazing, just the way you are. And when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while. 'Cause girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. Yeah. Her lips, I could kiss them all day if she'd let me. Her laugh, she hates, but I think it's so sexy. She's so beautiful, and I tell her every day. Oh, you know, I never ask you to change. If perfect's what you're searching for, then just stay the same. So don't even bother asking if you look okay. You know I'll say, when I see your face, there's not a thing that I would change. 'Cause you're amazing, just the way you are. And when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while. 'Cause girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. The way you are. The way you are. Girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. When I see your face, there's not a thing that I would change. 'Cause you're amazing, just the way you are. And when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while. 'Cause girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. Yeah.
You've been listening to Fresh Waves, a Whistle FM production. I'm your host, Brenda Masson, and our technical producer is Jason Rumball. Tune in every Wednesday at 10 a.m. for Fresh Waves here on Whistle FM, 102.9 on the FM dial and whistlefm.com anywhere in the world. Fresh Waves is available on podcast too. Just go to whistlefm.ca or freshwaves.ca. We podcast all of the Fresh Waves shows so that you can listen at your leisure. Fresh Waves. It really is